Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the DraftSeal number DS14000A. This is a half saddle threshold that is 7 by 1/4 inch. This DS14000A is actually made up of two of these pieces. Well, you get the point. It's meant to be like that, right? Okay. They're shipped loose. They're not shipped welded. They are not shipped as a single piece. There are two individual 7-inch wide half saddles that make a 14-inch wide full saddle threshold, is what is happening with this. It's very likely because 14-inch exceeds what can be extruded from wherever, the mill for the aluminum that DraftSeal gets the material from. So this is 7 by 1/4. Let's take some dimensions. Okay, 7. Quarter, absolutely. A fluted top, as you can see here. This is available from DraftSeal in different lengths. And what's happening is those lengths are listed. They have them listed as 3 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 9 foot, and 12 foot. Anything longer than 6 foot is going to end up proving to be quite costly when it comes to shipping charges, so be mindful of that. This client ordered some 3 foot lengths. So I don't know how many were ordered, maybe 4. So the client was shipped a total of 8 of these pieces, let's say. This is going to include a package of fasteners. They look like they're about a number 10 by, inch and a half or so flathead screw with some plastic anchors. I personally wouldn't install a threshold with a plastic anchor. And by the way, it weighs about 0.08 pound per inch for one of these, is what it is. When it comes to a 7-inch width, the whole 14-inch is going to be about 0.18 pound per inch, is what it is. Then, of course, we have some countersinks or dimples that are here down the length of the item, and that's what this is going to be used for. Now, where would you use such an epically large threshold like this? Let's talk about that now. Well, obviously, somewhere where you need a very wide threshold. They're not common thresholds this wide, that's to be sure. You'll occasionally see them 7, 8, 10-inch wide. You get to 12-inch and beyond that, you're dealing with material that's unusual, that's to be sure. Sometimes people will use thresholds as a way to cover over a transition between two disparate pieces of concrete that have a designed gap between them. I've been in stair towers where that concrete was relieved, where you'd normally fill it with backer rod and maybe caulk it. But, it's a maintenance issue, so they'll put a threshold over it. And I think the idea is that you'll put a threshold over it, secure it to one of those, monolithic, pieces of concrete, and then it can just kind of float over the other side as those two pieces of concrete will move in relationship to each other. And I've done really wide thresholds. I think 18 inches is about the widest that I've done. It was a custom welded unit, not from DraftSeal. But why? Well, because I was doing a 16-inch deep frame, or maybe it was 20-inch. I forget. It was something approaching 20-inch. Not unusual. You've got an extremely thick wall. You've got a building that's 150 years old, literally. And, the project I'm thinking of is in Manhattan, where they took an epically old building, and it's been turned into, you guessed it, high-end retail. And they need to have a heavy-duty service door and an extremely deep frame. This door was a son of a gun. This door was about an 18-inch deep 12-gauge frame. Yes, 12. It had a 14-gauge door. This was a 4090. We hung it on sauce hinges, and they were laminating 12-gauge stainless to the face of the door. So the design of what we had to allow for the rabbet of the frame, where those sauce hinges were installed, to allow for the 12-gauge cladding that was coming on the face of the door. It was crazy. It was nuts, that sort of thing. It worked out perfectly. Extremely heavy door, extremely heavy frame. And in fact, it was maybe 4090, but then it may have had like a 2-foot transom above it. Brushed stainless cladding. Why that? Why not just stainless? I don't know. It was meeting the design aesthetic of this high-end retail where I'm all for it, but where a t-shirt is $400, I'm all for that. This was the type of client that was going in there. You can name the names yourself. The point is that all of the hardware with that opening was commiserate. It was on par with the caliber of the door and frame, as was the threshold. It was a half-inch tall saddle, 18-inch, about 18-inch, and it was welded together. So it was a really deep threshold, and it was really nice when it was all said and done. It was welded. DraftSeal apparently does not offer that on this. I've never asked them if they'll weld these together. Or they may, and they may not. If you need it welded and they won't, we can find you someone who can. There's no doubt. Custom fabrication is permissible. So when you have really unusual openings like that, which don't happen all the time, but they do, you're calling for a big threshold. Now, if you're looking at this just as a 7-inch half saddle, sure, that's going to allow you to transition between two uneven floor surfaces, 1/4-inch rise, butts up to that concrete really nice. And there you go. Why you would need 7-inch? Maybe you've got a deeper than average frame. Who knows? This could be a sill, threshold on top, and then you've got vinyl tile on the inside. That's about a 1/4-inch, right? So that's going to work out pretty well. Is where you're going to end up using these really wide thresholds. But also it's aluminum. You are only limited by your imagination in terms of how you'll end up using it. It could be just a standard frame, but what you want to do is you order this a little bit long and you want to coat the frame around this. Okay, so this runs long against the face of the frame and it's butting up to like a 10-inch thick wall. Why you might want to run the aluminum hard against the face of the frame itself all the way up to the masonry and caulk all of that is because you want to protect the bottom of the frame from salt being thrown down in the parking lot. That kind of thing as well. If you're not butting up to something, you might need some mitered returns. It's pretty not uncommon either. You do need to be careful with this. This has clearly been cut probably through a bandsaw from a larger piece. It's clearly something modified from something bigger. Let's switch to the screen view now and let's take a closer look at the supporting information.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Here is the item that we are looking at, the 5 lengths that we have. Let's just look at the 36-inch, which is this job. You've got this profile here, and they clearly indicate 2 pieces, not welded. Commercial low-rise extra wide threshold, 1/4-inch by 14-inch. Then you've got your length, whatever it might be. Handicap compliant for 2 reasons. It meets the rise over run for this approach here, and it doesn't exceed a 1/2 inch. It used to be 1/4-inch. It's been 1/2 inch for a long time. Non-returnable, that's because this is custom. Even for DraftSeal, they don't sell many of these. They don't want to see it back. Product catalog, let's click on that. And this is going to be a link out of the manufacturer's full-line catalog where you can see these low-rise, extra wide. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's as big as they're going to get. Can they do them wider? They can. I mean, if you were to take, 7-inch lengths and you were to cut this all out, you could, if you were able to TIG weld or have a factory fabricate you material, yeah, you can make them wider. But conversely, let's say that you had a need for a custom width. Let's say 6 1/8. Great. Order this 7-inch half saddle and rip it on your table saw, and you'll have exactly the size you need. I recommend people do that all the time. It's just aluminum. You'll be able to cut that quite easily with a carbide-tipped circular saw blade. There's also a link to the cut sheet. This will be nothing beyond what we've already discussed. There is a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page, where you can pull up not only all of the DraftSeal products we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to their full commercial product catalog and their residential product catalog. They have distinctly different, separate commercial and residential catalogs, products that apply to both. This residential catalog will certainly have thresholds in it, but meant for residential applications, pre-hung doors, things of that nature. People who are manufacturing pre-hung doors, they're going to use the saddle as an integral, or the threshold as an integral part of their construction. If you have an application like this and you can't find the right type of residential threshold, it may not be DraftSeal that you have, but DraftSeal's product offering might fit exactly what you're working on. It might solve the problem perfectly. They're a Canadian company, so I don't personally bump into DraftSeal thresholds on doors here in the United States, but they are certainly out there, that's for sure. And then the commercial catalog, of course, is going to be your different thresholds, your door bottoms, your perimeter gasketing, things of that nature. The usual suspects, saddle thresholds, varieties of that material, and there you go. So you can go through that. Thermal brake is what we're into now, bump-up style thermal brake. Being a Canadian company that's going to see some winter, that's to be sure, no matter what part of Canada you're in. You know, good quality weather stripping is something that they shouldn't find hard to sell based on the fact that I believe they're in British Columbia. Let's wrap up this video on camera.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
Now, in conclusion, I had said earlier that I wouldn't use plastic anchors. I wouldn't at all, and I don't think you should either. I would personally be using 1032 machine screws and lead anchors is what I would personally be using. Drilling that hole, setting that lead anchor down, obviously caulking the base of your threshold, and then running a machine screw into it. You ever walked over a threshold that kind of did that on you? Yeah, it's a plastic anchor probably. That's no good. You don't want to hear a clanking on the threshold when you walk over it, and you certainly don't want it moving back and forth on you either. So good installation is what you want to have. We can provide you with those machine screws and lead anchors, so don't be too worryful about getting that material. Reach out to us, and we're happy to help you with that. The name DraftSeal is synonymous with those weather stripping groups that I had just shown you in those two separate catalogs. I like DraftSeal. They're good, straightforward, no-nonsense folks. The downside of DraftSeal, if you fall into requiring a solution that only they provide, and there are instances when that's the case, plan ahead. They are in Canada. We only issue orders to them maybe once a month. That material is an international shipment. It has to come to us in Southwest Florida. It literally couldn't be coming any further from Vancouver down to Southwest Florida. It just, it's a distance. Plan ahead. Be mindful of that lead time. There's no realistic way for us to increase that without exploding the shipping cost. So just keep that in mind. But I wouldn't hesitate if you've got the time and they've got exactly what you want and the price is agreeable, etc. I wouldn't hesitate to use their product. Not at all. Any questions on the DS14000A finish, which means mill aluminum? No other finishes on this, by the way, just this mill aluminum. And mill aluminum is what aluminum looks like when it comes from, well, you guessed it, the mill. It's just raw aluminum. Any questions on this or any other DraftSeal product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.